Porsche Panamera 4e Hybrid Sport Turismo 2017 review. From £63,913. 8 point. A long time in the making, the Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo isn't a conventional estate car, instead a 4+1 seating liftback GT with a bit more room and sharper looks than its four-door sibling. What is it? Back at the Paris Motor Show 2012, Porsche gave us a glimpse into its future in the guise of the Panamera Sport Turismo concept. It promised a plug-in drive with a touch more practicality than the regular Panamera. After the positive reception there, it was approved for production by Porsche chairman Matthias Müller. 5 years later it's finally here, unveiled at Geneva and in showrooms soon. Like that Parisian concept, the test example we've borrowed for our first drive is a plug-in hybrid, though the Panamera Sport Turismo will, with the exception of the entry-level Panamera and range-topping Turbo SE hybrid, be spreading its practicality gains across the full breadth of the Panamera model lineup. That means there will be everything from a turbocharged 3.0-liter 335 bhp petrol V6 in the Panamera 4, through to the 534 bhp 4.0-liter twin-turbo of the Panamera Turbo, with the 4S Diesel's 4.0-liter turbodiesel with 416 bhp and 627 pounds-foot of torque somewhere in between. It isn't thoughts of either that flagship turbo or elastic 4S diesel that are forefront in my mind now though, but how this new Panamera looks. Time softened the original Panamera's lines, but visually it was never a car you could truly love. The second generation Panamera changes that, the car finally confident in its skin. And this Sport Turismo version enhances that sense of self-possession further. What's it like? Based on the standard Panamera extended executive version, the Sport Turismo's wheelbase remains at 2,950mm. It looks longer, that lengthier roofline and more upright D-pillar deceiving the eye. Still just over 5 meters minus 5,049mm if you must know. The width also unchanged at 1,937mm, too. Height increases, though by a mere 5mm, to 1,428mm, though the roof's extension further back rather than that slight increase in height is what characterizes the increased space, or at least perception of it, in the rear seats. Sit back there and the difference is clear. The roofline continuation behind your head, where in the regular Panamera it would otherwise plunge downwards, creates a more comfortable impression of space in the rear passenger compartment. Headroom's improved for the two outside passengers, with the car's new middle seat, a first in a Panamera, is more of an apologetic high perch between those two properly accommodated passengers. That plus one passenger had better be short and narrow too, the wide transmission tunnel also denying much comfort for any fifth person careless enough not to call shotgun on a proper pew. By describing it as a 4+1 seating concept, Porsche is admitting that seat is abstract, even if there's a three-pointed seat belt back there to support it. Don't think, either, that the Panamera Sport Turismo's going to swallow a Chesterfield. A Chippendale perhaps, but a loin-clothed mahogany tanned one rather than a wardrobe. Yes, the seats fold in a 40/20/40 split, the seatbacks unlocked electrically in the boot. Do that and they create a virtually flat floor. Again, it's deceptive, looking bigger, but load space in all is up by just 20 liters, which is a small overnight bag at best. Now a maximum of 520 liters seats up, or 1,390 liters folded, though the hybrid here loses some 95 liters over its non-battery assisted relations for just 425 1,295 liters. Some way short of a Cayenne 618 1,728 liters capacity, by way of comparison. Throw in the sizable bag with all the charging cables and the boot's smaller again, that a complaint that's peculiar to this plug-in model alone, though. Practicalities then, aren't necessarily the Panamera Sport Turismo's strongest point, even if Porsche offers it with a variable loading system including boot rails with lashing points, a luggage net and optional power socket. The larger hatchback is electrically operated as standard in all, its opening giving better, lower access to that marginally increased space. If ultimate luggage carrying is what you're after, then you'll be better served elsewhere. Think shooting brake then, a more, dreadful as it sounds, lifestyle spin on the Panamera. Or simply just think of it as a more alluring Panamera shape. Its form arguably works more convincingly with contrasting standard dark, rather than the optional sport design body-colored elements that are fixed to the sides, front and rear here. Leave it standard and the rear looks less buxom and the flanks slimmer. As with its conventional hatchback relation, you'll need the optional 20-inch wheels, or even better the 21-inch ones to fill those wheel arches convincingly. What is impressive is all that extra Sport Turismo bodywork only sees weight rise by 20 kilograms. In this, the heaviest of the Panamera Sport Turismos, that means a not insubstantial unladen din weight of 2,190 kilograms, unladen weight TC -2,265 kilograms. You only need to have put some cells in a dummy RC car as a kid to understand where the extra 275 kilograms over the non-hybrid Panamera 4S comes from. We've driven this powertrain before, and there are elements of it that genuinely impress. Glide off using e-power mode on batteries and 134 bhp electric motor alone, and it's quick and quiet, perfect for town driving. Thanks to an 87 mph electricity alone top speed and respectable range, it doesn't feel confined by the city, either. The 31 miles of promised range is unlikely in all but perfect conditions, but use the hybrid mode and it'll only fire up the 2.9-liter V6 petrol when it's absolutely necessary. There is, of course, the opportunity to pick and choose the energy management, the options including e-hold if you're inner city, low emissions zone bound to conserve the battery's charge. The drivetrain also allows you to push charge to the battery on the move, but do that and you could run a turbo flat chat down the autobahn and achieve similar consumption. With all, there are some compromises then, not least in accessing them. Some elements of the hybrid drive require submenu navigation to find, not all being available on the mode switch dial on the steering wheel. Usefully, the Porsche Communication Management's combined touchscreen and haptic touch interface on the center console is all fairly self-explanatory, if prone to the odd messy fingerprint. What is clear here is that Porsche has been working on how the various hybrid elements interact. Driven initially on the original launch, there were moments when the 4E hybrid's internal combustion and battery power mating seemed conflicted. In the Sport Turismo here, that's far less obvious, the transition between E-mode to auto hybrid and back, and everything in between, a bit more resolved, if not entirely seamless. There's still the odd hiccup through the 8-speed PDK transmission, a low speed knock that upsets the Panamera's otherwise fine refinement. The accelerator pedal feel is transformed, the odd, unnatural pushback from the pedal of the early cars not so obvious here. Porsche has clearly quietly working on the system's integration behind the scenes. The brake pedal, too, feels more conventional, even though they remain tasked with regeneration and not quite as decisive in their initial bite as regular Panameras. You do also pay for the 4E hybrid's drivetrain's mode juggling party tricks elsewhere. Undeniably the bluntest of the Panamera lineup dynamically, even Porsche's chassis people have a job masking the additional mass the hybrid system brings. The steering isn't rich in detail, though the standard Panamera suspension does a fine job of producing both a decent ride and fine body control. It's all okay until you start asking more from it, where that additional mass comes into play. Arrive quicker at corners and the 4E hybrid's mass is apparent, pushing the Panamera wide.